What's up? Great to see you guys. I'm going to answer your questions live now, so whatever you have, hit me with it.
Albuquerque.
Vincent is from Albuquerque. What's up, Rebecca? Good to see you.
Yep. So we're just going to make it easy to just ask the question, okay? Just restate
Okay,
the question.
I'll restate the question, okay? Gantos33 says, does multivitamins and green subs interfere with muscle adaptation due to antioxidants? So multivitamins aren't high enough in antioxidants. Some green supplements are, so you just want to separate those from your workout by at least a couple hours. Okay, Abdullah says...
Tips for Ramadan fasting.
Oh, okay. Good to see you again. Please give me some tips for Ramadan fasting. So basically, Ramadan fasting is a form of intermittent fasting, right? So a couple tips that you want to have is that, one, probably keep your training closer to the period of either right before you break the fast or after you've already broken the fast. That'd be number one. Number two would be that, and you'll be fine. You should be able to gain just as much muscle as you normally do. Number two is before you start Ramadan fasting, probably start adapt going into it. So maybe start to lower your meal frequency before going slowly, before you go into Ramadan fasting, because otherwise it's going to come down and hit you really hard, and you kind of at least have a 2-week prep period. Number three on Ramadan fasting is, the biggest thing is not if you're not able to drink water during the fasting period. During the actual Ramadan, during the time you can eat, make sure you're hydrating properly, because you might go into it fairly dehydrated. So hydrate properly, maybe even add a little bit of sodium to your foods to try and retain a little bit more fluid during the feeding period. Okay, Julian, Physique21 says, what is the best way to properly activate rear delts? I've heard protraction of the shoulders as well as retraction of the shoulders from... Okay, got you. So, Julian, basically, what you're really thinking about is like, he said rear delts. The best way to activate your rear delts, basically, is they're what we call horizontal adductors. So they move the humerus backward, the upper arm backward, okay, in a horizontal plane. They also extend the arm as well. So your main focus anytime you're doing rear delts is, I like lining up in a horizontal plane. You can do reverse pec deck flies. You do bent over laterals. The main thing is like start by focusing primarily like on the arm itself and just moving it backward. I mean, that's how you work the rear delts.
How important is maybe intent on specifically rear delts so you don't actually activate?
Yeah, I think intent's important because here's the thing, because you could end up using a lot of momentum with like your center back, for example. So you can end up like trying to really just like pull with your center back. So you want to focus on the rear delt and pulling that arm directly backwards. So I think intent's very important. Sandro Lemos goes, hit before or after strength for fat loss? Actually, you know what? I literally just reviewed a paper on this, and they found that doing it after didn't have as many decrements as doing it before, because I think doing hit before is going to cause a lot of fatigue. So I would do it after, because otherwise you're not going to be able to lift as heavy. And then two, I wouldn't do it on as much on leg days unless you have to. Good question. So Sean Kalmeyer says, why is multiple sets better than one set? Has research not shown that you recruit an amount of muscle fibers and nothing past that does anything? You know, Sean, it's real interesting that you bring that point up. So I remember when I had an old website called abcbodybuilding.com, and literally, I don't know I guess controversy follows me or whatever, but like when I was doing ABC Bodybuilding, the big controversy was like this all or none principle, right? You know, either you recruit the muscles or you don't, and once you recruit them, it's irrespective, doesn't matter. The reason why that's not the case is this, okay? You not always, because there's some other principles, but most of the time you recruit slow twitch muscle fibers, but they don't always hypertrophy. Yet studies show when you do very high repetition training, you hypertrophy the type 1 fibers more. What's the difference? The difference is you have to recruit and fatigue, okay? So recruiting is different. You have to recruit, you have to fatigue, and also you want to think about there's tension on the muscle as well. But there's a fatiguing process, there's a damaging process. Okay, so think about it like this: if like I were to get in a fight and someone punched me once, technically I got punched. Is that all that matters? Or if I got punched 10 times, right? There's a difference between the two. It's not just like I'm going to have to basically, it'll take me longer to recover from 10 punches. Well, on your muscles, you don't just recruit them, you need to expose them to a stimulus, and exposing them to that stimulus multiple times will result in more growth factors produced and a greater overall protein synthesis response. I hope that answers your question. It's not just recruiting the muscle fiber. Thomas Christopher Lewis says, best approach to go about a mini cut. 10 to 14 days, how aggressive can I go? Still need to cycle calories? Yeah, I think 10 to 14 days is a perfect time to do like a mini cut. How aggressive can you go? I mean,
super aggressive.
I'd go super aggressive, like, go hardcore and then go back to maintenance after that. You know what I mean? So don't starve yourself, but I would say you could have a 500 to 800 calorie deficit with your diet and then go hard on your training. The training alone is going to cause that would be part of the cut, and then go back to maintenance for 10 to 14 days, and then you can repeat. Jacqueline Fit Model. What's up, Jacqueline? Nutrition tips for suppressed thyroid. All depends how you got there, Jacqueline. I'm going to assume that a lot of it was basically long, hard dieting and probably lots of cardio, in which case basically my best nutrition tip is like you got to get your calories back up to maintenance, and you have to lower your training volume. Like those are my two tips. Would you agree? Like those are the number one things. You got to get your nutrition up to maintenance. You're not losing fat, and you need to lower your training volume. Like a lot of times suppressed thyroid goals are being overreached, right? Jimmy Gale says, how do I change my nutrition whether I train on hypertrophy or strength? Thanks for all your amazing content. Jimmy, it's a really great question. Here's the thing to understand, okay? Strength training is not bodybuilding. It's not. Powerlifting is not bodybuilding. It's not. All right? So to put it in perspective, like, like for example, if you go like my own body types right now, I'm probably like 180 something right now, okay? I've ranged. I've gone to 205 to as low as like 158, okay? So here's the thing, all right? I've been 205, train really hard, and been able to squat like whatever, 420 or something. And then I've been 170 pounds and been able to squat pretty much 500 pounds, okay? I was clearly didn't have as much muscle when I was 170. What I did was I trained for strength, and I squatted every single day. I did bench press most days a week. I deadlifted 3 or 4 times a week. Sometimes I squatted, to be honest, like 14 times a week. And so I was able to squat close to 500 pounds, right? The point is entirely different, the adaptations, right? So you could technically eat maintenance calories and get way stronger just by practicing the task over and over and over and over again, right? So it depends if you're trying to make a weight class. When you say hypertrophy, it depends. Are you trying to change your body composition but maintain a similar weight? Or are you trying to go up and add mass? I'm going to assume it's mass. If you're trying to put on mass, you probably want to have a slight calorie increase a day, 250 calories extra a day to 500 calories extra a day. We did a study where we had more than 500 calories extra a day, and people just gained fat, right? So excess calories helps, it's anabolic, but going above like 500 calories, you're just going to add fat, okay? So that's my take-home message on that. JW4 says, what are the best types of workouts for BFR training? Your standard workout basically is going to be 30 repetitions, rest 30 seconds, and do 3 more sets of 15 repetitions. That's one thing you can do. I also like 50 rep method and 100 rep method, okay? 100 rep method, so I've done this like on squats. I've talked about this like a lot. You pick a light weight, Okay, so like say I pick 135 pounds on squats. I wrap my legs. I do as many as I can. Say I hit like 40 or 50 reps with it. Then I stand with a bar on my back. I kind of just rest, pause for like 15 seconds. Do as many as I can. Stand with the bars on my back. Keep doing as many as I can all the way till I hit 100 reps, okay? So that's the 100 rep method, okay? You do it on leg extensions. You do that on calf raises and whatever. But the point is 100 rep method. Which one am I? This one?
This one.
Okay. Dressage Alex Dominguez says, is there a particular food you recommend breakfast for helping endure workouts in the heat? Exercise up to 6 hours a day in Florida heat. Oh, you're in Florida.
And I bring this up because of our cramp issue we had just last week.
Oh, yeah. Got you. Well, I'll tell you what, Dressage, one of the biggest things you got to realize is that it comes down to exercise in heat. A lot of it is hydration, okay? So that breakfast is important, but the entire day before is important. So for you, make it real simple. You have to focus on hydration. And it becomes real simple. You go, well, how much water did I drink? Well, when you go pee, it should be light like lemonade. Like that's your feedback. So going into that, if you're not showing light like lemonade before you go for your exercise, you're going to be screwed. Okay? As far as what to have for breakfast, definitely have something saltier because the saltier food is going to basically help you retain fluid. Okay, so that's definitely one of my advice points that I would give you. Tom Goddard, Dr. Jacob, what's up, Tom? Do you believe in the anabolic window after workout, and how long is it? Yes, I do believe in the anabolic window.
Posted about it.
How long is it? Well, basically, if you're untrained, it lasts probably like 72 hours. If you're trained, it's a matter of hours. You know what I mean? Basically, the anabolic window is, I don't know how you not believe it. After you exercise, there's a period of time where you're gaining muscle. That stops at a certain period of time. Like that's the anabolic window. So the more trained you are, the more important it becomes. John O'Donnell 964 says, I'm trying to bulk and use a carb backloading diet. Should I eat all my carbs, 200 grams, and 3 to 4 hours before bed post-training? Probably not.
I mean, like more so in the morning before your training. So is it predicated upon energy throughout the day? Should you consume it, or is it right after around a workout?
Yeah, I think there's something to carb backloading. I do think it's an approach that can work, but I think you can start eating your carbs after noon, like after lunch. If you're gonna, you know what I'm saying, John? So I wouldn't necessarily listen. There are studies that do show you'll still replace glycogen, but I don't necessarily think getting them all in at once is ideal for body composition. Craig Kent, what's up, Craig? The superhero maker, Craig Kent, what's up, brother? The guy who Craig is actually the guy who puts on FitCon.
Yeah.
And FitCon's huge. Every single year it gets better and better. Have you done any work with Katsu in terms of measuring growth? So yeah, great question. Yes, and it increases muscle size actually robustly. So there's studies where basically like you could literally put on the Katsu. Because for you guys who don't know, Katsu is the gold standard on blood flow restriction. Okay? So it's like people think of that as wraps. Well, Katsu actually controls the pressure. You can repeat the pressure you were at last time. It's a really cool machine. But anyway, with Katsu, to answer your question, you can increase growth robustly, with Katsu. So yes. Coach Becky02 says, have you ever worked with vegan athletes? How did you find their muscle growth match up with meat eaters? I've currently switched to a plant-based diet and I'm a bikini competitor. So, Coach, is a really good question. There's lots of studies with vegan diets, and basically what they do show is that you don't gain as much muscle. Sometimes you lose it and you gain more fat. That's the short end of it. Now, can you overcome that? Certainly you can overcome anything, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to need to supplement with branched chain amino acids and essential amino acids, and definitely iron. Especially being a female, you're going to want to make sure you supplement with iron.
B12 and B6.
B12 and B6 for sure. So make sure you have a B vitamin. You're supplementing with iron. You are taking in essential amino acids. If you athletes will think that, oh, I'll just pair rice and beans. Not going to work. That's not going to work. I'm just telling you right now. You'll gain fat and lose muscle, period. So I'm telling you right now, you got to supplement with all those things. It can be done. It's going to be harder. Okay. Eric Olson says, I know you do not suggest doing cardio after a leg day. Why is this? Because it interferes. So Eric, think of it like this, all right? Protein synthesis is like turning a faucet on, okay? I turn on protein, I turn on the faucet. Or I'm turning a light switch on, okay? Cardio turns it off. So I go train and lift weights, I turn on the switch, I do cardio, I turn it off. That's why I don't recommend it.
What about just specifically leg day?
Okay, so basically normally cardio is done with legs. So normally, like, don't get me wrong, you could technically do like something just for your upper body, crank, but you know, most people don't do that. So the reason why is because when you do legs, the light switch turn on your legs. So I do cardio on my legs, the light switch turned off on my legs. Great question. Sam Chevy 88 says, I'd like to see what your thoughts on fasting 18 to 72 hours to raise HGH and lift fasted to get growth benefits from it. It's not going to work. So basically, if you fast to raise growth hormone, that could be beneficial for fat loss. It could be beneficial for connective tissue. It's not going to help with muscle size. And studies show that basically if you do the intermittent fasting where you only eat 4 hours, you don't gain as much muscle. Whereas you can gain as much muscle if you're fasting, like if you're eating 8 to 10 hours. So that'd be my response. Bon Shiki says, does lifting weights increase muscle mass? I don't know.
Can you speculate?
Is there a limit?
I think yes. Good question. Arus Fit 2000 says, drop sets and supersets versus heavy set for hypertrophy. So Arus, I'm going to assume that basically they're different mechanisms. They both increase hypertrophy, but supersets are more metabolic and heavy lifting is more mechanical. Craig Kent says, what was the device at ASPI that was featured on Generation Iron 2? The EMS system?
Beastin.
On
which one was that?
And Terrence.
Oh, that's 4U Fit. It's a 4U Fit device. Good question. Generation Iron, guys. Generation Iron 2 is out. P Bell Fitness. What's up, P Bell Fitness? Says, can you give your opinion? German volume training from a bodybuilding point of view? 100%. Like German volume training is like you have to do it, definitely, but it's brutal. Now Paul trains balls to the wall.
I do, and I find that brutal.
Yeah, and he finds that brutal. Paul's got a really high threshold for pain. Like I saw he did a donut challenge with like 405?
405.
How many reps you hit?
5 by 5.
So he did 5 by 5 with 405 donut challenge
While eating donuts.
While eating donuts. That's hardcore. Like that's hardcore. And Paul says, and Paul's bigger than I am now, but what do you weigh now?
190.
Oh, Paul's 190. So he's like 10 pounds bigger than I am, but anthropometrically we're very similar, okay? And so he's lifting like 405, 5 by 5. It's insane. But anyway, Paul says it's hard as hard. But it's actually one of the hardest things you ever do. So basically what you do is this, okay? You pick a weight that you can probably squat or whatever it is. It's a compound movement. I've heard people go, oh, have you ever done German volume training? I did it on arms. That's not German volume training, okay? Conceptually, yeah, but that's not the point, all right? German volume training, you pick the hardcore compound lifts. You pick something you do 15 reps with traditionally, and you do 10 sets of 10 with no more than 1 minute rest between sets, okay? So say you could squat 225 for 15 reps, okay? You do 10 reps. You rest a minute. And when I say a minute, you are doing a squat at 60-second mark. You're not going, oh, a minute's up, let me get ready to go onto the bar. It's like 30 seconds you're getting ready to go onto the bar, and at 45 seconds the bar's on your back, and then you're stepping back, and at 60 seconds you're down. So 10 sets of 10, okay? Bench press, squat, deadlift. Do I think it works? Absolutely. It's one of the highest metabolic stress. And not only that, but let me tell you something. Basically, it's like you find out about yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Like you find out how tough you are. You find out how much you want it, right?
And if it wasn't hard enough, you didn't do enough weight.
If it wasn't hard enough, you didn't do it. You know, if you're a guy, you find it if you're a man.
But you could do 135 pounds 10 by 10, but that's not the
Yeah,
point.
exactly. But you know, girls kill it though a lot of times. Stuff like that, they do that. Girls, but again, girls have higher strength endurance. But you know, but if you're a guy, if you do it, you find out. You're going to ask yourself, "Am I a man?" Right? And if the answer is yes, you'll continue. So there you go. So Tom Goddard asks, "How long does muscle memory last? Years?" Well, you got to define muscle memory, right? So basically, I wonder if Will's watching this,
Probably.
right? Okay, so I've heard people go, oh, muscle memory, that's stupid. It's not like the muscle has a brain in it. But here's it's conceptually, guys. It's conceptually. Don't get technical on this. Listen, here's the point. If I lift weights and I stop lifting and then I go back and lift again, I get my strength back faster. That's one form of muscle memory, okay? But then also I gain muscle back faster. How long does it last? It depends, okay? What I can tell you is this. There's two forms that we can really think of. One is central in your nervous system, and that's learning. Now, by definition, learning is relatively permanent, okay? So once you've learned something, it's like, for example, even if I haven't played, think of a skill. Do you remember how to ride a bike? If you haven't ridden a bike for 10 years, should you get back on a bike and ride it? Yes. So those motor components of lifting are still there, okay? So that is relatively permanent, okay? Then there's also what happens in the muscle. When you lift weights, you add nuclei, basically like nuclei in the muscle, and that has the capacity to grow. No one's really studied how long that nuclei lasts, but I suspect at least a couple years. Some people would say longer. So I would say as much as probably, part of it relatively permanently, the muscle part at least a few years. We just don't know how long.
No time it is. Rapid fire.
Okay, guys, we're going into rapid fire now, okay?
We're going to try to answer as many as we can.
So I'm not going to go into detail. It's going to be closer to yes or no at this point. Does that make sense, guys? Let's roll. Okay. Tim Hoxa says, when dieting, so sodium levels matter?
Sodium levels.
Not really. How do you find your body's maintenance calories? Typically, we default to maintenance. So whatever you're eating, you're not gaining weight, it's your maintenance. But we typically default to that. Sandro Lemo says, what do you think about foam roller for recovery? It increases blood flow. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's beneficial. What's the next one? Oh, Goran. Goran says, what do you think about carb protein diet on weight training days and fat protein diet on cardio days? I think the concept is fairly sound. Someone said something about Generation Iron. Okay.
Oh, wait, do you want to see that one?
Yeah, I want to see that one.
Okay, this one.
Been looking for a place to see Generation Iron 2. I think Vimeo, it's out right now.
Vimeo or Gen Iron's website.
Or Generation Iron's website, but soon it'll be on Amazon, and then after Amazon it'll be on Netflix. I don't know when, though. Okay, but you can go to the other question. Okay, this bulk.
Yep.
Bulk C. Brown, is there a certain time to take in carbs when cycling for fat loss, e.g. Before or after cardio? If it's for fat loss, separate it from cardio by a few hours. Matt Holtz says, are there any studies done on minimizing myostatin? Do you have the whole question?
Sorry.
Okay. Are there any on minimizing myostatin with diet? Are there any evidence that certain foods will change myostatin? Well, foods that are high in creatine, like beef and eggs, will seem to lower myostatin. Real Jared Hamilton says, how do you find your maintenance calories? Again, basically you want to think about this like this, Jared. If you just track your calories for 2 weeks' time. For the most part, you're not going to gain or lose weight. Like if you're just going based on Phil, if you gain a pound over those two, you're basically not going to really gain weight. That's probably your maintenance calories. We typically default to what our maintenance calories are. That's my thoughts. Did you guys have any insights on that?
Maybe a formula.
You can start with a formula, but probably just
do it for weeks. See if you maintain.
See if you maintain. It's your maintenance. Alex Parker says, do you lose actual muscle fibers during such after a long cut? No. They shrink. Using creatine in Ramadan could help? Yes. It's not going to cause kidney problems? No. Rebecca Hudson says, what is the best way to gain muscle back for ectomorphs after upper body muscle loss from a 2-week deload? Just go back to what you were doing. You'll regain it real quick. How often do you refeed on a cut? Basically, it's calorie cycling. So I would say, 2 days a week. Hey, doc, is cell apoptosis and autophagy the same thing? No, apoptosis is programmed cell death. Autophagy is basically like you're cleaning the cell out. You're breaking down proteins in the cell. But they're very similar and related. Is there such a thing as too much cardio? Yes. These are rapid fire. So,
yeah, I know you're good.
Morn says, hi doc, what are your thoughts on fasting and autophagy? How would you work this in? 3 to 7 day fast with HMB. Okay, so basically a short story long. If you're going to clean the cell out, which is autophagy, you need a fasting period of at least 12 hours a day. So, okay, here is one. What should I do to get a job with a muscle PhD? Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, Nick, here's the thing. As you notice, our goal, should I take a little more time on this one?
Go ahead, yeah, take some time.
Okay. This is kind of a really important question today, I says.
It is.
If you want a job like with a muscle PhD or Applied Science and Performance Institute, well, people you really want to ask is like Andy Barninger and Paul Hauser, right? These are my brothers, right? My brothers from another mother right here. Like in our group text, it's called the Three Musketeers. So
Literally.
They're going to be experts on this, and I'm going to let them chime in. What I'm going to say is this. A lot of people think like Applied Science Performance Institute is our home base, okay? And we do a lot of studies, a lot of research here. But what's our main mission? To bridge the gap between science and application. Science means nothing, zero, zilch. It doesn't mean anything unless you guys can understand it. And that now I understand it, take it and change your lives. So people who are listening to this, some of you, for example, might be scientists. We have a ton of scientists in ASPI, but you might have different skill sets. For example, right now, we're actively looking for individuals who are really good at like filming and photography and editing films that can come in and help us take what we do and bring it to you. Another thing we're looking for right now is graphic artists. People who are very good at graphics, font, text, creative design, okay? So my point is that there are multiple skill sets. What I would do is basically like go to the musclephd.com and go to the contact and say, hey, this is my skill set and this is why I want to be a part of the Muscle PhD or Applied Science. I understand your mission. Here's how I think I can help further that because I want to touch lives too, and here's my skill set I think I can do that with. Now, you have to understand, it's super competitive too, and I don't like to use that term, but a lot of people do want to be at Applied Science Performance Institute. They do, and I wish I could take everyone in. I really do. Like, I love all you guys. But obviously, there's limitations on space, there's limitations on resources. So sometimes people want to do internships. So a lot of times people have come in and done internships, right? So like Paul has a massive background in marketing and business, and Paul originally came in and said, you know what, I literally just want to come here and help further the mission. Like and then now it's a full-time position where Paul's in charge of all the marketing that goes on here because he has so many skill sets, and basically we couldn't be without the guy. Paul's literally does the work of 100 people every day, and like we're literally like we can't be without Paul. But he literally came here starting on an internship, right? So and so I think even similar with Andy. Andy came in when I was working at university and said, I just want to get in. And now, literally, Andy and I work together hand in hand, and he's full-time here.
It's not just us, though. It's everyone.
And I think everyone in this facility. So I think that's one thing that you could possibly do. And I know it was a long-winded answer, but that would be some tips,
Send one-on-one each.
Yeah. Anything that we can get the word out more, that's what we're looking for. If you have a specific skill, you don't have to necessarily have a background in my field. In fact, that's redundant. You know what I'm saying? So think about something different. Should I do some more rapid fires?
I got my final.
Okay, is the final one?
For my IG, and he's got a final.
Okay, we're going to do a final of each one. Is these rapid fire or go?
Go Paul's first.
Okay. Can super high protein diet and calorie deficit help lose fat and gain muscle at the same time? If it's a slight calorie deficit, you can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Yes. If it's past 500 calories, it'll be difficult. Not saying it can't happen, because it certainly can. It'll be more difficult.
What if it's just protein? What if the surplus is just protein?
So they said deficit. So now it's a surplus.
No, I'm saying in regards to this, because they assume they have to lose, in order to lose weight, they have to be in a deficit. But per some of our infographics, what if you're in a surplus and all that surplus comes from protein?
Oh, I think if it's a slight surplus, you can lose fat and gain size. Yes.
If it's protein.
If it's protein, yes. Sandro Lemo says, failure yes or no for building mass? Both. Yes, that's it. Yeah. Periodizing. Okay, guys, listen, I love you guys. You guys are freaking phenomenal. Check out Generation Iron 2. Go to Generation Iron's site. Guys.